Somebody cool off that AC, because Angel Caruso's here.
Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to rank all of the James Bond villains, the main villain of each of the 25 Eon produced movies. I'm not doing the other 2 or 3 or 4 radio serials, I'm not doing that. I'm doing just the movies that count and matter. So, these are in no particular order at all, but I'm going to rate each of them and give a brief description of what they're about, their effectiveness against Bond. Le Shifra, believed by MI6 to be born on November 16th, 1970 in Albania. Le Shifra is banker to the world's terrorist organisations. A mathematical genius and chess prodigy, his abilities enable him to earn large sums of money in games of chance and probability. Consequently, Le Shifra has a penchant for poker. Even though he has what at first to be an obvious tell, it is later implied that this is a trick to fool James Bond into becoming overconfident. He suffers from hemolacria, which causes him to weep blood out of his left eye, and uses a platinum-plated Benzedrine inhaler. He was a suspect of being involved in the funding of the September 11th attacks, as well as profiteering from it. There's not much to be said about Le Chiffre. He's got a gambling problem, and that's his biggest weakness, so I would give him a 5 out of 10 because of what he does to Vesper and everything that relates to Vesper. It cripples James Bond in a different way, which carries it over 5 films. So for that, Le Chiffre gets a 5 out of 10, because if none of that happened to Vesper, then I would give him a 4 out of 10. So I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. Le Chiffre gets a 5 out of 10. Raul Silva. Born Tiago Rodriguez, little is known about Raul Silva's early life, though his name indicates he seems to be Portuguese or perhaps Brazilian. He later relates a childhood story to a captive James Bond, describing how he spent time with his grandmother on an island that she owned, where she taught him how to rid the island of a rat infestation by capturing them in an oil drum. He utilises the image of the trap rats turning to cannibalism as a metaphor for what the life of a spy does to its participants, namely himself. During his years in the intelligence service, Silva had worked alongside Olivia Mansfield, who would later be promoted to M, in Hong Kong from 1986 to 1997. Mansfield, who was section chief at the time, noticed that the operative had engaged in unauthorised hacking of the Chinese, with the Chinese closing in on Rodriguez and the upcoming transition of Hong Kong from a British colony to a specialised administrative region of China, a transfer of sovereignty that year. Mansfield sacrificed Rodriguez in exchange for 6 agents held by the Chinese government and a smooth transition. Raul Silva, I'm going to give him an 8. The reason I'm giving him an 8 out of 10 is because he is so hell-bent with revenge on M, and he is also an agent. He knows how to hack everything himself. He's a skilled, trained man, and he can evade James Bond. He almost destroys James Bond with what he does to him at the Skyfall building at the end of the movie. Like, James is literally on his own. So for me, I give him an 8 out of 10 because he does almost destroy him. Again, his revenge is what is his weakness and stops him from being a 10 out of 10. But overall, Raul Silva, I'm giving you an 8 out of 10. Alex Trevelyan. Alec Trevelyan was born to a family of Linz Cossacks. Following the Second World War, the anti-Bolshevik Cossack brigades, whom had collaborated with the Germans, fled from the advance of the Red Army. They surrendered to the British Army in Austria, believing they would join them and wage war against the Communists. However, British decided to forcibly repatriate them and their families to the Soviet Union, where many were promptly executed and the remainder were sent to gulags, including women and children. The Trevelyan survived the ordeal and Alec Trevelyan was born shortly afterward. However, his father committed murder-suicide, unable to let himself or mother live with the shame of it. As with James Bond, Alec was now an orphan. In one of life's ironies, the young Trevelyan was recruited by the British Secret Intelligence Service to be an agent of the government that had betrayed his parents. Although MI6 was aware of his background, they had reasoned that these events had happened so early in Trevelyan's life that he would not be affected by them. Trevelyan rose through the ranks of MI6 to gain 00 status and the number 006. It was during this time that he became close friends with fellow MI6 agent 007, James Bond. The two went on numerous missions together and shared everything. Trevelyan's skill set included stealth, manipulation, superb skills in martial arts and hand-to-hand combat, expert marksmanship, and also a talent in several languages, just like Bond. However, Trevelyan continued to harbour resentment towards the British for their perceived betrayal and began plotting his revenge. Alex Trevelyan is 006, so that means he is probably an equal to James Bond. We're focused on James Bond as the hero, but they've still had the same training and they show the same qualities, and for them to have the same 00 grouping, I'm going to have to put him as a 9. He would be a 10, however, he's flawed. Once the reveal of him becoming a villain, he becomes somewhat flawed, makes his mistakes, more so than before the reveal. So that makes him a 9 out of 10. Ernst Stavro Blofeld. Now the subject of an international manhunt by the British Secret Service titled Operation Bedlam, Blofeld establishes a clinic allergy research institute atop Piz Gloria in the Swiss Alps. James Bond investigates the office of Swiss lawyer Gumbold and learns that Blofeld is corresponding with London College of Arms genealogist Sir Hilary Bray, attempting to claim the aristocratic title Comte Balthazar de Blochamp. He ventures to Switzerland, posing as Bray, to gather intelligence on Blofeld, who has went to the lengths of having his earlobe surgically removed to back up his claims of nobility. There he learns that Blofeld secretly plans to contaminate and ultimately sterilise the world's food supply using biological warfare, carried by his brainwashed angels of death. Blofeld claimed he would not carry out his plan if all of his past crimes were pardoned, and he is recognised as the current Count de Blochamp. Bond tries to trick Blofeld into leaving Switzerland so that MI6 can arrest him without violating Swiss sovereignty. Blofeld refuses, and Bond is eventually caught by henchwoman Irma Bunt. Blofeld reveals that he identified Bond after his attempt to lure him out of Switzerland and tells his men to take the agent away. Bond eventually makes his escape by skiing down Piz Gloria, while Blofeld and his men give chase. This version of Ernst Stavro Blofeld is entertaining, however, he's not really threatening. He's more of a warm villain, like you like him, he's charming. Completely different to the Donald Pleasance version, and more likeable than the Christoph Waltz version. There is a charm to this man, and you kind of want to see his plans succeed. So I'm going to give him, because he's not very threatening, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. Auric Goldfinger. Auric Goldfinger is a British businessman with worldwide business connections. He is an officially licensed jeweller and gold dealer, which allow him to melt down certain amounts of registered gold and smelt it into new bars. Greedy beyond measure, however, Goldfinger uses his dealings with his society, Auric Enterprises, AG, to smuggle gold on a large scale out of Great Britain. He does this by having the body of his Rolls Royce in 18-karat gold, weighing approximately 2 tons. Travelling to the country in question as a business trip, his men dismantle the vehicle at his enterprise is using Switzerland, which in turn are turned into gold ingots. Nevertheless, although he has had great success with this tactic, Goldfinger, in his boundless greed for gold, is the epitome of committing a terrible crime that he has been planning for 15 years. Goldfinger, his greed is his weakness. He is so desperate to get this gold that, again, he gets lost in his plan. Now he is very smart. And he is very powerful. And he's willing to kill. But what you see at the end of Goldfinger is everyone wake up after the gas has been deployed. And for that, he's just not as threatening as he could be. All of those people should have been dead at the end of Goldfinger, and I would have bought it more. So I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 for being powerful, threatening, but being a little bit weak because of his greed. So 7 out of 10 for Goldfinger. Franz Sanchez. Franz Sanchez is a Colombian drug lord running his own empire from the fictitious Republic of Isthmus. Owner of a large luxury estate protected by an army of henchmen and controller of the city president, Sanchez has either bribed, intimidated or killed most of the government's officials. Heading an international drugs cartel, Sanchez is both ruthless and merciless, yet is cultured, refined and a man of his word. Sanchez rewards loyalty but promises death to anyone who double-crosses him. James Bond was able to exploit this weakness to manipulate Sanchez into killing several of his own men, convincing him of their disloyalty. Now, License to Kill is one of my favourite James Bond movies, and Sanchez is very threatening. However, he beats women, and the rest of the violence comes from everybody else. He is intimidating, and he trusts in James Bond, and that is his weakness. He trusts him. I'm going to give Sanchez an 8 out of 10, purely because he's lethal and he will kill anybody. And what he does to Felix, I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. He destroys James with what he does to Felix. 9 out of 10. Go on. Lucifer Saffin. Lucifer Saffin was born to a family of chemists who supplied poison to Spectre, which in turn sought to procure and operate their island manufacturing facility, the Poison Garden. When he was a young boy, Ernst Stavro Blofeld sent Mr. White to poison the entire family with their own dioxin chemicals. He succeeded, killing all but Lucifer, although he was left facially disfigured, traumatized and filled with an insatiable thirst for vengeance against the organisation and its members. What can we say about Saffin? He's threatening. He absolutely destroys James Bond, but is he threatening enough? I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10. Even though he is primarily one of the reasons that James Bond is dead. That's still not enough for me. He's up there, and because of what he does with saving Madeline and sparing her life, we can see that he's a good man and he's not evil enough. He's just angry. So for me, he's an 8 out of 10.
Somebody cool off that AC, because Angel Caruso's here. Turn on the AC. It's Angel Caruso.